Okay, let's unpack this. We have a fascinating puzzle on the table today.
A real puzzle.
Yeah, it's not just one story. It's more like a war over who gets to own the truth.
That's a great way to put it, a war of narratives.
Because we are looking at a stack of documents that, at first glance, they look like they belong in totally different sections of the library.
Oh, absolutely.
On one side, we have a novel. It was a bestseller from the 1930s called Bonds, written by a guy named Harold Vanner. And it is juicy, it's tragic, it's really beautifully written.
It is indeed. It has that classic feel, It reads almost like an Edith Wharton novel, all about high society, hidden secrets, and a very, very steep fall from grace.
Right. It has that texture of old New York. You can almost smell the damp wool and the cigar smell.
The sound of horse hooves on cobblestones, that whole atmosphere.
Exactly. And then on the other side of the table, we have this. It's a rough, unfinished manuscript, an autobiography titled My Life, written by a Wall Street titan, a guy named Andrew Bevel.
And it could not be more different.
Not at all. It's pompous, it's stiff, and it's riddled with these weird little notes to himself in the margins. It genuinely looks like a draft that was pulled out of a typewriter, before it's even close to being ready.
And here's where it gets really fascinating. These two documents, they're telling the exact same story.
Or trying to.
Right. Or rather, they're describing the exact same people, but from violently opposing perspectives.
That's the hook, right? Because Bonds is, technically fiction. It's about a reclusive financier named Benjamin Rask and his wife, Helen. But in the world of the source material we're looking at, everyone who read it knew. They knew that Benjamin Rask was a stand-in for Andrew Bevel, and Bevel is, well, he's furious about it.
Livid.
So he starts writing My Life for one reason, and one reason only: to crush the narrative that Bonds put out into the world.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We get to play literary detective.
I love this.
We're going to take these two texts, the offensive novel and the corrective memoir, and we're going to overlay them. We're going to see where they align, where they clash, and what that gap tells us about how history is manufactured.
It's more than that, too. It's about how a legacy is built or maybe curated.
Curated is the perfect word, because Andrew Bevel isn't just writing a memoir here. He's building a monument to himself, brick by brick, specifically to bury a ghost.
And the ghost is his wife.
The ghost is his wife.
That's what this whole thing really comes down to, isn't it? But before we get to the real tragedy of it all, we have to start with the money, the power.
Always.
So let's look at our protagonists. In the red corner, we have Benjamin Rask from the novel Bonds. And in the blue corner, the real Andrew Bevel from My Life. How do they start out?
Well, let's dig into the origin stories, because even here, right from the beginning, the spin is it's incredible. In Bonds, the novelist Harold Vanner, he paints Benjamin Rask as this solitary, almost alien figure.
Right, he's not normal.
Not at all. He comes from money, sure. His father, Solomon Rask, was a big shot tobacco trader. But Vanner gives us this visceral, telling detail. Benjamin Rask hates tobacco. He can't stand the bittersweet stench of rotten leaves.
I love that detail. It's so good. It tells you everything you need to know about him in one sentence.
Yeah.
It establishes him as an outsider immediately. His dad, Solomon, was this gregarious guy, right? Yeah. Smoking cigars, slapping backs, making all his deals in the smoking room. Solomon Rask was a guy who used tobacco to make friends, to build relationships.
He was old world capital, tangible.
Exactly. And his son, Benjamin, he is completely repulsed by it. He sees all that luxury as a vulgo burden.
Precisely. And Vanner describes Rask as viewing capital not as something you trade, but as an antiseptically living thing.
Antiseptic. That's such a key word.
It's everything. Antiseptic. Rask doesn't want the messiness of trade. He doesn't want the leaves, the ships, the sweat of the laborers. He wants pure abstraction. He wants the math.
He just wants the numbers on a page.
So he buys out his father's partners, shutters the whole operation, and just retreats into his silent house to make money breed with money. He's a cold machine. Vanner even writes that Rask excelled dispassionately in every subject at school. He was a dissatisfying victim for bullies.
Because he just didn't care.
He didn't care. You couldn't get a reaction out of him.
That's such a great character beat. He's unbullyable because he has no emotional surface area to grab onto. He's like Teflon.
Completely Teflon.
Okay, so that's the fictional Rask. Cold, detached, a brain in a jar. Now, how does Andrew Bevel rewrite this in his memoir, My Life? Because he definitely doesn't want to be seen as a cold machine.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Bevel's strategy is it's aggressive myth-making. It's fascinating. He doesn't start with himself. He starts with his ancestors.
Right, I noticed that. It's chapter after chapter about his forefathers.
He spends all this time detailing this grand lineage of great American men, William, Clarence, Edward. He's trying to prove that his success isn't just luck or some weird mathematical quirk. No, it's genetic destiny.
He's making it sound inevitable.
Inevitable. He talks about his great-grandfather, William Trevor Bevel, who made his first fortune during the embargo of 1807.
I remember that section. He frames it as this heroic act of, turning a national crisis into a brilliant opportunity. William went deep into debt to buy up non-perishable goods when everyone else was panicking and selling.
And Bevel writes that William found a way to turn the situation to his favor. He presents it as foresight, as genius. Then he moves on to his grandfather, Clarence. Now, this is where it gets really interesting.
Why is that?
Because Clarence sounds a lot like the fictional Benjamin Rask.
Oh, okay.
Bevel describes him as a mathematical genius, but also a total hermit. Had a severe stutter. Lived in complete isolation, surrounded by books and numbers.
So Bevel basically admits the math genius hermit is in his DNA?
He admits it, but he compartmentalizes it. He frames it. He says, yes, that was one part of my heritage, the quiet brilliance of my grandfather. But then he immediately pivots to his father, Edward.
And Edward was the opposite.
The total opposite. Edward was the sportsman, the risk-taker, the guy who built forts as a kid and hunted big game as an adult and charmed everyone he met. He was expansive, gregarious, all the things Clarence wasn't.
So Bevel is setting himself up as the synthesis of all three. He's saying, I am the perfect alloy.
Exactly. That is his entire argument. I have the mathematical precision of the hermit, the audacity and guts of the sportsman, and the visionary opportunism of the pioneer. It's a direct rebuttal to the idea in Bonds that Rask is just a freak of nature.
A weirdo.
A weirdo. Bevel is insisting that he's the culmination of American capitalism. He frames his incredible wealth not as personal gain, but as a duty to the nation.
It's so defensive. He's not just hoarding gold. He's carrying the torch of civilization. He has these lines like, personal profit and the common good were not at odds with each other.
Which is a statement you only make if you feel you have to defend your profit.
Right. It's so transparent. In Bonds, Rask is a genius, but he's strange, he's an outsider. In My Life, Bevel is a genius, but he's a statesman. He even calls himself a Renaissance man because he claims finance connects all things.
Every financier ought to be a polymath, he says. He's trying so hard to elevate stock trading to the level of philosophy or high art. He is desperate to be seen as more than just a man who is good at making money.
Speaking of high art, let's talk about the wives.
Yes.
Because this is where the war of narratives gets really, really nasty.
This is the absolute heart of the conflict. The portrayal of the wife is where the two texts diverge so violently that you have to ask yourself, what on earth is Andrew Bevel hiding?
So let's start with the novel. In Bonds, we have Helen Rask. Who is she?
Helen Rask is formidable. She's fascinating. She comes from this fading aristocratic family up in Albany, the Brevorts.
Old name, but the money is mostly gone.
Exactly. And her father, Leopold Brevoort, is this wildly eccentric intellectual who gets completely obsessed with the mystic Swedenborg, with seances, with esoteric European philosophies.
Right. He drags Helen all over Europe chasing these bizarre ideas. He even tries to make up dreams and record them.
And that very strange upbringing shapes her profoundly. The novelist, Vanner, depicts her as intellectually powerful. She learns multiple languages, she understands complex mathematics, and she keeps these incredibly intense analytical journals.
And she's not sweet.
Not at all. Vanner has this killer line where he describes her as having a quietly vicious boredom.
Quietly vicious. I love that.
She's not a simple domestic flower waiting to be picked. She's sharp. She has this realization early on that boredom had violence on the other side.
That line, violence on the other side of boredom, it's so chilling. It suggests she has this immense, maybe dark potential coiled up inside her.
It does. And so she marries Benjamin Rask, but not out of love or even affection. She marries him, Vanner writes, because he offers her a vast solitude.
A vast solitude. That gave me chills, too. She doesn't marry him for his company. She marries him for his absence.
She marries him because he will leave her alone. It's a partnership of silence. It's a business arrangement. They have separate bedrooms, separate interests, essentially separate lives under one roof.
She respects his mind, but she's actively repelled by physical intimacy.
Right. So she fills that void, that vast solitude, with her own passions, philanthropy, but also very cutting-edge avant-garde art and music.
And music is a big deal in the book, isn't it? Vanner makes a huge point about her taste in music.
A huge point. It's not pleasant parlor music. It's complex, modern, dissonant stuff. Stravinsky-esque. She hosts these salons that are legendary in the New York art world, but she's always the smartest, most intimidating person in the room. Vanner writes that she disliked social occasions and much preferred listening to talking. She was an observer, a thinker.
Okay, so that's Helen. Intense, brilliant, intimidating, maybe a little cold herself. A woman with a rich, complicated inner life. Now, enter Andrew Bevel with his red pen, ready to edit history. How does he describe his wife, Mildred?
It is a complete character assassination disguised as a eulogy. It's breathtaking. Bevel systematically tries to flatten her into a one-dimensional saint. He constantly, and I mean constantly, refers to her childlike wisdom. He emphasizes her simplicity, her gentleness.
He strips her of all her intelligence.
Completely. He says her great loves were gardening, arranging flowers to look like Dutch paintings, and drinking hot cocoa.
The hot cocoa, I saw that. It's so infantilizing. He has the scene where he describes her sitting in their private art gallery with a book and a cup of cocoa, just looking content.
It is. It's a deliberate act of erasure. He is desperate to strip her of the complexity that Vanner gave to Helen, and he goes on the attack specifically against the music.
Right. This is the most direct contradiction.
It's unbelievable. In my life, Bevel explicitly writes that his wife Mildred regretted never learning an instrument. He claims she only liked simple, pleasant recitals. He writes, "She saw the beauty in the world. Her mission was to allow for others to see it too." He's practically screaming at the reader. She wasn't a modern art genius. She wasn't an intellectual. She was a simple housewife who liked pretty things.
It's like he's trying to protect her memory, but in the act of protecting her, he's just erasing her. He makes her sound so boring. He even says he had to guide her philanthropy to ensure it was rational.
As if she couldn't handle the numbers herself.
It's insulting. He makes her sound like a prop in his great life story.
And we can actually see the gears turning. We can see him building this prop. Because my life is an unfinished draft.
Yeah, those little notes are amazing.
The placeholder notes in the text are so revealing. He writes things like, picture 1,000 words, reproduce here Burleigh's portrait. Or, my favorite, just the note, more Tommy.
More Tommy? What does that mean?
He had a grandmother, Thomasina, who we called Tommy, and she was the perfect, supportive wife to his hermit grandfather, Clarence.
Yeah.
So in this section where he's describing Mildred, Bevel literally writes a note to himself, more Tommy. He wants to draw a direct parallel between his grandmother and his wife's. He wants to fit Mildred into a pre-existing template, the great man's wife, the helpmate. She cannot be the erratic, brilliant, complicated Helen Rask from the novel. She has to be the anchor. She has to be simple.
It reveals the labor of lying.
Yes.
He isn't remembering Mildred. He is constructing her.
Yeah.
It's all so synthetic.
And you have to ask why. Why is he doing this? Why is he so threatened by the version of his wife in Bonds? Is it just that the fictional Helen goes mad at the end?
Well, that's certainly a huge part of it. The trajectory of Helen Rask in Bonds is utterly tragic and deeply disturbing. Vanner writes that after the big market crash in 1929, Helen just unravels. She starts writing furiously in her journals in a mix of English and German and what looks like code, and she develops this horrific eczema.
The red flat monster. That description was visceral.
It's not just a rash. Vanner describes it as if her own body is attacking her, this red lichen that's colonizing her jaw. It's just horrifying to read.
It's a physical manifestation of her mental turmoil.
And then comes the treatment. This is where the story shifts from a tragedy into a full-blown horror movie. In Bonds, Helen herself demands to go to a Swiss sanatorium, the Medico-Mechanic Institute, in a place called Bad Pfeifers.
And it's the exact same place her eccentric father disappeared years before.
Right. So there's this grim circularity to it. At first, she's treated by a Dr. Fromm who uses, talk therapy. He's gentle. He encourages her to write, to walk in the mountains, to breathe.
He actually listens to her. He tells her that her obsessive desire to understand her own illness is the illness, and he tries to help her untangle it.
And it works. She actually starts to get better. There are scenes of her boxing, taking therapeutic baths. She's calming down. She's improving.
But Benjamin Rask, the fictional Bevel, isn't happy with better. He doesn't want improving. He wants cured. He wants normal. He wants the problem solved.
He wants control. Rask hates Dr. Fromm. He thinks all the talk therapy is quackery. He calls the doctor a fabulist, a storyteller, so he fires him. And he brings in the heavy artillery, a Dr. Aftis from Berlin.
And this is the part of the book that's just It's hard to read. It's genuinely upsetting.
It is. Dr. Aftis uses a new experimental drug, pentylenetrazole, to induce massive seizures. It's a precursor to shock therapy.
His theory, which was a real theory at the time, was that epilepsy and schizophrenia were biologically incompatible. So if he could give her epilepsy chemically, it would cure the madness.
It's so brutal. Vanner describes these violent convulsions, these artificial seizures that are intended to reset the brain.
Yeah.
And Rask watches it happen. He authorizes it. There's this one terrible detail where he helps tie her wrists to the bed with shreds of her own silk robe.
That image, tying her down with her own silk robe, it's so symbolic of how he uses her own life, her own elegance, to constrain her, to pin her down.
And in the final treatment, the convulsions are so severe that Helen's body literally snaps under the strain. She breaks her collarbone, and then she dies of heart failure.
It's depicted as a murder.
100%. A medically sanctioned murder. The novel's argument is that Rask killed her because her illness was messy and inconvenient. He sacrificed her to his fanatical need for order and control.
Precisely. Bonds accuses the great financier of being a monster. Now, look at how Bevel counters this in My Life.
Yeah.
It is a total, systematic whitewash.
In My Life, there is no madness.
Nah.
No journals, no eczema, no talk therapy, no seizures. Bevel says his wife, Mildred, simply got cancer.
Cancer. A respectable illness, a tragic physical illness. There is nothing mental, nothing hysterical about it. And notice his role in the story. In Bonds, Rask is the villain forcing the brutal treatment.
But in My Life...
In My Life, Bevel's the protector.
Yeah.
He's the hero. He claims he hid the cancer diagnosis from Mildred to preserve her joy. He paints himself as this noble, suffering husband, bearing the terrible burden of the truth all alone so that she could be happy.
He even mentions the Swiss clinic. He has to, right? Because
Yeah.
everyone knows they went there, but he spins it completely.
He has to address the facts that are already out there in the public imagination because of the novel, this damage control. So he admits, yes, we went to a clinic in Switzerland, but he describes it as a beautiful, restful vacation, a peaceful sanatorium where she listened to string quartets on the lawn.
He says the air was invigorating.
Invigorating. For a dying woman, the spin is just shameless.
And her death. How does he handle the actual moment of her death?
This is the absolute key detail to highlight. This is the smoking gun of the whole thing. In Bonds, she dies screaming, convulsing, breaking her own bones. It's a scene of pure violence.
And in My Life...
In My Life, Bevel writes that he had to leave the clinic for one day on urgent business to go to Zurich to save the world economy, essentially.
Of course he did.
And while he was gone, she died, peacefully, in her sleep. He describes her final gesture to him before he left. He simply reached up and touched his forehead. A loving, silent, poignant farewell.
She rested the back of her hand on my forehead.
It's so clean. It's so perfect. It's suspiciously perfect. It reads like a carefully constructed alibi. He is specifically and directly refuting the violence of the novel Bonds with an image of supreme saintly peace. He's saying, she didn't die hating me, she died blessing me.
It really, really makes you wonder what actually happened in that room in Switzerland, because Bevel is trying so hard to sanitize it. There is no madness in his version, just a bit of fatigue.
He even writes that in her final weeks, she had a newfound serenity. He is stripping away all the pain, all the conflict, all the mess. He even claims she spent her last days reading mystery novels.
Oh, right, the mystery novels. I forgot about that. In Bonds, Helen is reading complex German philosophy and writing in her journals. In My Life, Bevel insists Mildred just liked Agatha Christie-style books and would retell the plots to him over dinner.
Again, he is insisting, almost manically, on her simplicity. She wasn't a tortured genius wrestling with existence. She liked whodunits. It's such a specific and bizarre detail to include. It feels almost aggressive in its banality.
Okay, well, let's open the other big box here, the financial one. Because the other major accusation in Bonds is that Benjamin Rask basically caused the 1929 crash. Or, at the very least, that he profited from it in a way that felt evil.
Vanner absolutely portrays Rask as a predator. In the novel, Rask is one of the first to notice that the market is completely detached from reality. It's a bubble. He uses his brain trust of mathematicians to spot a tiny lag in the ticker tape.
Right. He sees the crash coming before anyone else.
He sees it coming, and instead of trying to stop it or warn people, he pushes it over the edge. He uses his immense capital to flood the market with sell orders. He shorts all the stocks he knows are garbage. He bets against America.
And he wins, big time.
And he wins. Vanner describes him being called a vampire or a vulture in the press. He makes an absolute fortune while ordinary people are jumping out of windows. He's completely ostracized for it. And Van writes that Rask viewed the whole catastrophe as just a numerical event. He felt absolutely no guilt.
So, how does Bevel defend himself against that? He can't deny he made money. The money is there. The whole world knows he came out of 1929 richer than ever.
He doesn't deny the actions. This is what's so brilliant about his strategy. He reframes the intent. This is a masterclass in public relations, in spin. Bevel admits he shorted the market. He admits he sold off everything he owned. But he claims he did it for the good of the country.
The patriotic short defense.
Exactly. Bevel argues that the market was bloated with rot. He blames the riffraff, the housewives, and the speculative tourists for ruining the pure, noble mechanism of the economy with their toy money.
He blames the housewives. Seriously.
Oh, yes, explicitly. There's a whole section where he complains that women represented nearly 40% of the speculators and calls their involvement hysteria. He views himself as the stern, wise father taking the dangerous toys away from the children before they hurt themselves.
That is unbelievably arrogant.
He calls his massive short position a corrective measure, a necessary if painful surgery. He was lancing a boil on the national economy.
So in his telling, when he destroys people's life savings, he's actually doing them a favor.
That is precisely his argument. He has this incredible quote. He writes, "The market is always right. Those who try to control it never are." And then he spends the entire rest of the chapter explaining in minute detail how he controlled it.
The hypocrisy is staggering.
He claims he was just clearing the decks so that the economy could be rebuilt on a more solid foundation. He frames his obscene profit not as greed, but as the natural just reward for being the only sane man in an asylum.
He writes, "I have always been a guardian of public interest."
Even if the public did not always recognize it, he paints himself as a martyr to his own genius. He writes about the crash as if he were a force of nature, like gravity or a hurricane. "I cleared the decks." It sounds almost military, doesn't it?
It does, and this brings us right back to the meta layer of my life. Why is he writing this book? He's writing it because the novel, Bonds, got under his skin in a huge way.
He actually says as much. He mentions in his text that he is incensed by libelous accusations and malicious fictions that have been spread about his life. He doesn't name Bonds or Harold Vanner explicitly, but it's completely obvious what he's talking about. He is fighting a war for his own legacy.
A legacy he wants to control completely.
He wants to replace the image of the cold mathematician with the Renaissance man. And, most importantly, he wants to replace the image of the mad, brilliant wife with the saintly, simple helpmate.
And the text of my life, it feels so constructed. Like, literally, we can see the scaffolding he's using to build this new reality.
Yes, those notes we mentioned earlier, the placeholders, expand on this. Generosity is the mother of ingratitude.
More Tommy.
More Tommy. It shows us that this isn't a genuine stream of memory. It's a legal defense being drafted in real time. He is building a case, point by point, against the accusations in the novel.
And the unfinished nature of it, the fact that it just cuts off mid-sentence, it makes the whole project feel fragile.
It does. Yeah. For all his power, for all his billions, this man is terrified of a novelist. He's terrified of a story he can't control.
Because sometimes fiction has a way of feeling more true than the facts, doesn't it?
I think so. Bonds clearly hit a nerve. It has an emotional truth. It depicts a tragedy that feels real, that feels psychologically plausible. The scene where Rask ties Helen to the bed, that feels emotionally true to the dynamic of a controlling, desperate husband, even if it didn't happen exactly that way.
Whereas Bevel's My Life just feels synthetic. It's propaganda.
It is. And the harder he tries to convince us that his wife Mildred was simple and happy and loved hot cocoa, the more we suspect that Vanner's version, the brilliant, tortured, complex Helen, might be much closer to the reality.
It's like he's shouting, nothing to see here. She was simple. She let me move along.
And she definitely couldn't play the piano. That denial is so specific, so strange. Why does it matter so much to him if she could play music? Unless that music represented something he couldn't control.
Her inner life.
Her inner life. Her complexity. Her own voice. By denying she had any musical talent, he is trying to deny that she had a voice separate from his own.
So let's recap where we are. We have unpacked two completely different versions of reality. Version one from the novel Bonds. It's a tragedy about a man who loved capital more than he loved humanity and who ultimately destroyed his brilliant, difficult wife with medical violence because he couldn't control her.
And version two from the memoir My Life. A piece of propaganda by a tycoon who claims he was a hero, a patriot, and a tender, loving husband to a simple, saintly woman who died peacefully of natural causes.
And we, the readers, the listeners, are left right in the middle. Was the wife actually mad, or was she just inconveniently brilliant?
Did the husband kill her with his negligence and his need for control, or is that just a novelist's dramatic flair?
It's the gap between the two stories that is just so compelling and makes you question everything you read about these so-called great men. Bevel writes, "A man's worth is established by the number of these defining circumstances he is able to create for himself." He literally thinks he can create the circumstance of his own history.
History is written by the victors, as the old saying goes. But Bevel's frantic, desperate need to correct the record suggests that maybe, just maybe, deep down he didn't feel like a victor. He felt like a man who had been seen, truly seen, for the first time. And he didn't like what the mirror showed him.
That's a great point. So here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on. If Andrew Bevel is trying so hard, so obsessively, to convince us that his wife Mildred was simple, domestic, and non-musical, what is he hiding about her? What if the fiction, the story of Helen Rask's journals, her intellect, her genius, was actually the truth that Bevel is trying to bury? What if the real genius in that house wasn't the man making all the money, but the woman he's working so hard to silence?
That is the ultimate question, isn't it? And I think the answer to that might change how we view the entire legacy of American finance.
Thanks for diving deep with us.
Always a pleasure.